Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk About Sleep. Here's the book. Amazon link to this is in the description box down below, as always. Probably tired of me hearing me say that. Second book, we're almost there. And we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. Once we get there, one person at random will get a signed copy of this, but you got to be in it to win it. So please subscribe to this channel. Please like these videos. Please share them with your friends and family. We're trying to grow this channel and this community. And as I always say, these videos are for what? Educational purposes only, right? So today we're going to talk about an interesting condition that I've been getting some questions about called upper airway resistance syndrome. Now, normally when somebody puts a question or a comment on my videos, I will answer them during my monthly question and answer videos. But I got this question a few times, so I'm going to do it now in this format. So thank you for everybody who asked about it. Upper airway resistance syndrome, the best way to describe it, it's kind of like somewhere in the middle between snoring and sleep apnea, but it's kind of its own lane. Let me explain. So the upper airway, which is right here, okay, where the tongue sits and the soft tissue of the throat sit. When we're awake and talking to each other, the airway back here is wide open, okay? When we fall asleep, the muscles in our body relax, and the airway, tongue kind of falls backwards, and the airway gets a little bit smaller. Happens to everybody. Now, when that airway gets to this, okay, so tightened, you're still able to breathe in and out, but everything kind of vibrates. That's what snoring is. And when the airway totally closes off, that's sleep apnea. Okay? And I've done videos on this. You can see throughout my, the playlists. But upper airway resistance syndrome, it's a little bit different. So if we blow this out, we say this is normal, this is snoring, this is sleep apnea. UARS is kind of somewhere in the middle. So the airway is tight, but it's not tight enough to close off the air supply. Okay, this is seen during a sleep test, right? So during a sleep test, you would not see that the airway closes off. You would see that there's a tightening there. This does not happen to everybody, but the people who are predisposed to having UARS, their brain recognizes this tight airway as a threat. Okay, so somebody who doesn't have UARS, they may have a tight airway, but their body is not responding to it the same way. UARS, you see, like, I think one of the first descriptions of it were people who came back from the Gulf War. Actually, my mentor, when I was in training, his name is Avram Gold. He was one of the first people to really kind of put forth this idea. He worked at the VA, still does, and he was taking a look at these patients who came back from Gulf War, and they were exposed to various gases and toxins in the air. They came back and they all had this same condition, this UARS, where the airway wasn't totally closed off. They didn't develop sleep apnea from this, but the airway was tightened as seen during a sleep test, and now it's like their body was primed to respond to that. So what happens is they would kind of have disrupted sleep, okay? But it's not so in sleep apnea, right? People have this repetitive stoppage of breathing. It causes their body to kind of go into the state where it's not able to rest. So blood pressure goes up, blood sugar goes up. They're tired in the daytime, okay? Or they're sleepy, I should say. People with UARS, what was found was these people may actually have low blood pressure, okay, instead of high. They may have low blood pressure. They may be fatigued in the daytime, not sleepy. And there's a big difference. Sleepiness is I will fall asleep, which you see in sleep apnea. Fatigue is I'm not going to fall asleep. I just don't have the energy to do what I want to do. Okay? There may be anxiety and depression and other kind of symptoms that sleep apnea just does not have. All right? We think what happens with UARS is there's a burnout of what's called the HPA axis. Maybe I'll do a whole video on that. That's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And what this is kind of like it's the system in the body that kind of does the fight or flight response, right? So it makes sense if people go through trauma of some sort, this system gets kind of burnt out, and now the body it's almost like primed to respond to this threat of a tight airway. Okay. Why is this so important? Because many, I hate to say it, many doctors and certainly insurance companies may not know about UARS or may not recognize it. So what happens is patients will come in, and there is a, they'll have them do a sleep test, and it'll show no apnea, right? And UARS patients will tell you this story all the time. They'll come in and they'll say no apnea. All right, so you don't have sleep apnea. Really can't do anything for it. Goodbye. But a UARS patient, they have problems. And what happens is the way we treat it with CPAP, let's say, positive pressure, it'll force the airway open. It will work. But the problem is that insurance companies will not approve CPAP in many of these cases because they don't have the apnea number above a threshold that they deem relevant. Okay, and UARS patients will tell you how frustrating this is. So, if that happens, what I would advise you to do is, if you've had a home test, let's say, and the home test is negative, you should go back to your doctor and say, look, I want an in-lab test looking for what are called respiratory event-related arousals. And that's a fancy way of saying the airway is tight and my body is arousing or waking up from that. Okay? And ideally somebody who knows UARS. Okay? It's, as I said, it's not nearly as commonly known as sleep apnea, but for a UARS patient, it could be just as important. Okay? So we treat it the same way as we do treat sleep apnea, but how we get there is much, much different. Okay? The other thing to mention is if we do treat these patients, it may take them a few weeks for the body to kind of adjust to CPAP, let's say. So the HPA axis, it takes a while for that to kind of normalize. All right? But that's kind of what this is in a nutshell, okay? It's much less well known than sleep apnea, but it's, dare I say, just as important. So thank you for everybody who asked questions about it. Please comment on this video. We'll get the community going on this, and hopefully people will, in time, know more about this condition, because it is very important. Okay? So if there's any questions on this, any comments, please drop them in the comment section down below. And until next time, sleep well.